G'day and welcome back to Critical AFL on YouTube. Today we'll be going through a quick review of the West Coast Intra Club scratch match this morning. And in the words of Justin Longmuir, it was a fairly vanilla style game today. So there'll be a lot of, caveats to what I say throughout the review today, just based on that. As I'm sure you can imagine, the physicality levels were down, given everybody's ultimately on the same team. And the primary objective before anything else would be to come out of these hitouts without injuries, which appeared to be the case today. So to start off, I'm going to try and put a headline to what I watched today. And the main one is that based on the level of competitiveness from the B side, I'm quite confident that West Coast's Waffle side has a lot of promise this year, provided we don't have a big list of injuries at any point. This is, for me, is a pretty valuable takeaway given the lack of development that a lot of younger players have had in the Waffle from recent years. Obviously, we had those 2 years where we had nothing but injuries and there were just a handful of AFL-listed players getting belted and not really being able to feed off anyone else doing much good out there. And then last year there was a slight improvement, but across the board, we generally haven't had great development in the Waffle. And I thought that today was a very good sign that this year that shouldn't be the case. So that's probably my big call for the day. As a standard for these intra-club hitouts, with the usual format being the best versus the rest, you can see the seconds team, or most players that are going to be in the seconds team, and how they stacked up against the A grade side. And for the first quarter, the rest, they really kept pace both on the scoreboard and around the ground. By the second quarter, the best, they started to run away with it on the scoreboard, mainly from quick goals and clean ball movement. So it was sort of just that difference in class started to really show. And then for the second half of the scratch match, they mixed up the side so much that the scoring and the scoreboard doesn't really carry the same relevance. I could note a couple of surprise players in the rest squad today, just that, you're sort of not expecting to see them there. But I wanted just to make this point that I'm not going to mention them because I just don't know that it's worth reading in too much. I'm not sure that it's an exact science down to the last player in each squad. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, you could see who was in each squad, but it's not something that I think is worth covering in the video. So I'll go straight into the best players from the day, and head and shoulders above everybody else was Tim Kelly. He quite casually looked to be in a class of his own. He was pretty much everywhere all day and was incredibly effective with his possessions too. Most people that have seen my videos know that I'm kind of big on just acknowledging what I refer to as a known quantity and moving on. And Tim Kelly's an absolute A grader who's a known quantity, so I won't go too hard on that one other than to say that he's was really, really good today. Another really good one from the best players was Ruben Jinby. He looked quite dominant across all four quarters too, and he seems to have added a little bit more ball smarts to his athleticism that we already know he has. He took the game on constantly, picked a lot of gaps, carried the ball forward on a lot of occasions, and also moved around guys a little bit on the inside a bit more than I've seen before, which is, for me, the most exciting thing. I've always seen Ruben Jinby as more of a straight line player, so to see him add that to his game relatively early in his career is a really big thing because it can actually say a lot about where he could end up being and what he's capable of. So that's one of the bigger positives from the day. And another really big positive was that another guy who was one of the best on ground was Elijah Hewitt. Anyone who saw my Richmond review video on Monday knows that I had him in the exciting players category. Today, he played very similarly, did a lot of exciting things, but the key distinction between them is that he got a lot more of the ball when he was doing it. So, he continued to be very dynamic with the ball, to do exciting stuff from the inside, from the outside, finishing. He missed a goal that looked very reminiscent of his goal in the opening quarter against Richmond, but right up until that finish, it all looked great. But he was just constantly in there. So I'd love to see the stats from hitouts like this one, just to know exactly how much he did have of it, because it looked like a lot. But that detail is only a few weeks away now when the real season starts. So just take my word for it that I thought he had quite a bit of football and did quite a lot of good things. Jake Waterman really stood out up forward in that first half. He pretty much pulled down anything kicked in his direction. I heard the commentator referring to him as sticky hands, which is a very good analogy. It just didn't look like anyone was going to take it off him when that ball went forward. So that's what we know. He's a known quantity as well. And I'm not sure what they did with him in the second half, because it's very hard to track these in intra-club scratch matches. You don't really get the scrutiny like, oh, so-and-so's come off. We're going to see if he's got an injury. They just take players on and off the field at will, which is exactly what you'd expect. But he did seem to be a little bit quieter in that second half. So I'm putting him in my best because I just saw heaps of him in that first half, and I'm not sure what they did from there. And the final one I had in my best players, which I'm really excited to say, was Tyrell Dewar. I personally was really stoked to see this because after his performance against Richmond, my first thought was that I really hope he doesn't give the coaches any excuse to overlook him. I mean, after being a guy that got that 1 year contract extension, you know that he has to probably do more to force his way into the squad. And it's exactly what he's doing at the moment. There's two competitive hitouts in a row where he's been one of our best players. So yeah, exactly the same thing as Richmond. He was just damaging whenever he went near it, and he went near it quite a bit. So still really excited to see he was on the wing. Really excited to see if they do put him on the wing in round one. That's my big hopeful prediction. And that's it for the best players today. The next one is the exciting players. And in the exciting camp, I've got Bo Allen again, and for exactly the same reasons as on Monday. He didn't have a heap of it. He was back in defence, which probably explains it. But when he did get the ball, did get his hands on it, he was someone who had a lot of X factor. Like a lot of things happened down the ground from his possessions, which I think if anyone's noticed that with Harley Reid, it's not just how damaging he is with the ball, but you just notice that the whole team, like the next play and the next play and the next play, all benefits from someone who can carry it and move it as well as that. And that's what I saw from Bo Allen with the footy that he got. So again, twice in a row, he's in the exciting players. Another one is Clay Hall, kind of the opposite to the Bo Allen thing, where he actually was everywhere all day, almost similarly to Tim Kelly because he was on the opposite side, but he just let himself down a little bit with his disposals, both by foot and by hand. A lot of really good work he did on the inside, didn't quite connect with his disposal to somebody. But that's probably just a little bit of a lack of competitive exposure. So you think that with a little bit of rust being shaken off, that aspect will really quickly improve. But what's already there is his ability to win the ball himself on the inside and move really well with it. So yeah, that was a really exciting thing. I mean, depending how you look at it, you might consider that to be someone who's in the best, debatable, but I thought he was really good either way, really promising. The next one, Harley Reid, was really good out there. He dominated the first quarter to the point where I'd probably say he was the best player in the first quarter. But similarly to what I mentioned earlier, it's just hard to track what they did with him from there. I'm guessing that they did move him around a little bit or pull him off a little bit based on the fact that he's just come back from a minor injury. But I just didn't see enough of him after that first quarter, and I don't know for sure the why of it. So he's just in the exciting category, and the exciting part being we know that Harley Reid is up and about and he's doing his usual stuff and he looks amazing. So, another exciting player. Other than that, Jack Petruccelli kicked 3 goals, which deserves a special mention. Ryan Marrick looked really classy out there, and Liam Ryan had a lot of really good moments. But I wouldn't really read too much into who hasn't been mentioned in this video. Like I said, it was a pretty low physicality game. So guys like Jack Hutchinson, he did some good things without really playing to his strengths, which is intensity. And certainly no one looked bad out there, which is really cool. Seeing how many people from the crowd and the atmosphere that they built up also contributed to the day. There was a heap of vendors out there, a really good turnout from fans. And I'd just be curious to know if Mineral Resources Parks had their maximum capacity increased, because I thought in the past it has capped off at about 4,000, and it just looked like there were more out there. Maybe it was just the vendors and the pavilions that they had set up, but it looked like a really good day above all else. Other than that, I'm not sure if the live stream that I watched will be up permanently because it disappeared just after the game finished. But previous year's live streams have been up. So if it does come back and you're looking for some entertainment to sit back with this weekend, give it a watch. Otherwise, as always, thank you very much for tuning in. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel already, please do. And then I'll see you all in the North Melbourne Review next weekend. Cheers again.